Good evening, guys. I just thought I really had to share the story. So I've been starting to do speaking coachings with my coach like 2 weeks ago, and we're still getting started. So he's trying to figure out what I'm actually doing for a living, and it's always interesting for me to like look at what I've been doing for the past 5 years from a different perspective. And the thing that he told me at the end was like, "Man, you are way too cheap." And everyone that knows me, I run a zero and A/B testing agency. Um, but yeah, essentially, what he was like, so what you're telling me, what you do for a living means you're saving people like 250K a year and you make them more money. And I was like, yeah, that's right. And most people don't really see it that way when doing CRO or A/B testing. And in this video, I want to shortly explain at what stage of the company you should do CRO and A/B testing in-house, but then also going all the way to the beginning, why you should start with an agency. So most people, when they initially want to do CRO and A/B testing, they have the thought of, and I'm gonna sketch a little bit, so bear in mind, they're thinking like agency equals bad. That most of the time is when we start with clients, that is the preframe they have. For some reason, apparently there's so many black sheeps out of there, they think that. And they do think the only solution for how to do CRO is CRO needs to be in-house. So that usually is the initial thing that most companies think about. And pretty much what I talked about with my coach then was, well, it's like completely wrong. Like if you think about it, CRO has so many different expertises that you need. It's like going to the hospital. Like let's say you need a heart surgery. You don't expect one doctor to do everything. Like you don't expect one doctor to sign you in at the front desk. Like that's gonna be a secretary. You don't like expect the heart surgeons to take you to a room to give you the anesthesia, to do all the paperwork, to give you all the medications. Like nurses usually do that. So they're like a bunch of people. And that's the same with CRO, but most people don't think about that. So if you are doing CRO and you want to do that, like usually what you will need is some sort of probably data analyst is the first thing you really need. Like just looking at all the data, making sure the tracking is set up right. Then you also need probably a behavioral psychologist or somebody that studied psychology, because everything you do in CRO is you change the decisions of a human being. And in order to do that really efficiently, you need a lot of knowledge in that area. Then you also have the design part. So you need UI/UX designers, which makes sense because once you have analyzed the data, you have the idea how you want to change the behavior. You actually need the person to design it. That can you need the person to design an A/B test pretty much, and then you need the person to build it. So usually that's like a full stack developer. And then last but not least, before the test is being developed and being shipped and taken live, you need a QA engineer. For everyone that doesn't know what that is, like every time you ship software, you want to make sure essentially that it works on every device. And that's why you need a QA engineer. So now most people, when they are like, oh, we're just starting out with CRO, but we want one person, we don't want an agency, because agencies are bad, remember that. And then they expect one person to do all of these things. Then pretty soon, like 2-3 months after they started looking for people, they're going to be like, oh, like not that easy finding a person. Like literally it's impossible. I've been running an agency with 45 employees for the last 5 years. You will not find a person that has all these skill sets. And then what they realize, oh shoot, we actually need to hire all these people. And what they're getting to quite quickly, sorry for scrolling around, is it's expensive hiring these people. Let's just put down the numbers of what it usually costs. And I need to adjust the size really quick. So data analyst, you can run about, calculate 50K, behavioral psychologist, like 55 to 60K. Like you're not gonna get someone that studied psychology for less than 55K, honestly. UI/UX designers are a little bit cheaper, like 35 to 40K usually. Full stack developer, depends on where it's located at, I would say. You can get some good ones for 60K, that's what you probably should plan in. QA engineer, I'd say around 40 to 45K. If you look in Europe, like in the US, prices could be a lot higher again. And then if you calculate all these things, you have like 100K, you have 200K, you have 240, 250K. And then in addition to the 250K, you need to calculate that. Let me put that here. You're going to have plus 25% additional salary costs, like health insurance, because good employees want to have the covered. And in some countries like Germany, where I'm from, you actually like you have to do it. Like there's no other way around. And then usually you have to pay like for the laptop and everything, so like plus an additional 2%. And then if you do that, you have like plus 27%. So let's calculate 250 times 1.217. You have a total, like try to calculate in your head. So that should be 317,000. What you end up paying for in-house team if you start out doing it on your own. And then my coach went like, that's a lot of money. Like, who is doing that? And yeah, if you look at it that way, it's borderline insane starting CRO A/B testing in-house. And I just want to line out, if I had a brand, and probably in the next 10 years I'm going to have a brand, quite sure about that again. I had some in the past. But I never ever would start out CRO and A/B testing with an in-house team, because the investment that you have here, 317,000, is just borderline insane. So usually what I recommend everyone, and I also recommend it to people that do not work with us, that ended up working with other agencies, here is exactly the three options that you do have, or that I would recommend. Like first option, I'm just gonna go out from our offerings, because like honestly, I think we probably are the best agency in the market right now. The first thing, what you want to do is start with best practice testing. And let me explain a little bit about that. So when we call about best practice testing, we're not talking about just implementing random things. What we're talking about here is stuff like you're working with an agency like us that has a couple thousand A/B tests in the database, that knows what worked in what industry, that then can run them for you. And usually that service, like in our regards, is cheaper than the cost of a full-time employee for a year. So literally like for 40, 50K, we pretty much, like if a store has never tested, the first 12 months, we can fill them with like all the knowledge we have. You don't need a lot of research. That's going to come in later, and I'm going to go on that. But in the beginning, you want to have that. You want to have a partner that has a lot of experience and a lot of data. And I really want to emphasize the data. So get a partner with a lot of data and experience in your industry. That's like taking a shortcut. Like you're pretty much getting all the expertise. And that's the cheapest stuff. Like you cannot expect a lot from here. Like you're not going to get any custom research. It's just best practice and like getting your shop from like the baseline to the first lift. Then the second thing that's going to come in here is research and understand audience deeply. Sorry, it's like a little bit ugly now. So the second part, when you are doing CRO and you're working with an agency, that you really should look into is starting to research and understand your audience. If you're trying to go back to the metaphor with doctors, like a heart surgeon, heart surgeon knows everything about the heart, anesthesia guy knows everything about anesthesia, and essentially what you want to do as a brand, once you get to the next stage, you want to be almost like a doctor and obsess about your customers. And then also you need to obsess about all the other parts of the CRO process, because you need to figure out how to run more tests, etc. But essentially, once you're scaling up and you're doing more tests, you have the best practice out of the way, you need people to dive deep into your data. You need to do surveys. You need to read studies from scientific papers that just have come out about different behaviors or like trends that influence it. And this actually is the expensive part why CRO and A/B testing is so expensive. Because again, in order to have more winners, you need to increase the amount of tests that are going to be successful. And the biggest lever is just customer understanding. And that part, like just again, if you do it all on your own with an in-house team, you're going to need like 5-6 people. Probably some more people because you need to hire for vacations if people are sick or on holiday, etc. So you're going to be a lot more than the 317,000. But that, for example, is what we focus on if we work with clients like Snox. Some might have heard about the brand. We took them from 6 million to 85 million. Big part of that was through the online shop, where we helped a lot increase the conversion rate. But yeah, so that's the part about that. And then the last part, why I think, and in the end goal, what it probably should look like for every brand, like once they're bigger, like you always should have like a person in-house that manages the agency. Just putting it again here. And then you have the agency executing. That's challenging. And hear me out why. So e-com brands most of the time just do not have the time and the brain power to really think into how can we run A/B tests most effectively, how can we make them as cheaply as possible to build, and how can we make more A/B tests successful. So in an e-com brand, you just don't have that. Like if you want to do it, you can do it, but it's going to be like $500,000 to $1 million in expenses per year. Then you can think about it. But the optimal solution, in my opinion, is you have like 1 or 2 people on a CRO in-house team that manage everything, that get the brand insights, work very closely with the agency. And then the agency that's pretty much very efficient, just due to the market as well, is going to help execute the A/B test in the most efficient way. And also, for example, that's with us, we do not get paid if we don't perform. That's something you just can't do with your employees. And that's also like why we as an agency exist. And that's why my coach told me, well, you're way too cheap. We pretty much guarantee results. And if you would do that to your employees, they probably would sue you. So you always gotta like see the pros and cons of agency and in-house. In my opinion, the best CRO and A/B testing programs are a merge between in-house and CRO team. But yeah, just really wanted to go about it really quickly and like get all the way back here. Just save yourself the headache and $250,000 doing it in-house and starting in-house and start out with an agency. If you need any help, let us know. And I hope I was able to empower you or like figure out more how to make the user journey on your website better, how to set up the processes and systems. And if there's anything left you would like to know, just send me a message.